Hello everyone, welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. Betty, here we are in Rhodes.
Look at the weather.
Beautiful.
Aren't we fortunate?
Very much so.
You know, God blesses our trips. He does. I think, well, I just
you,
like
you,
to
you
say
knew that
that
was going to happen, though,
Yeah.
before we left, right?
Well, I always think we've been very blessed with good weather. But and then when you have a day that's not so good, you can say, oh, that's okay, because everything else has gone so well. I guess we can share the bad with the good.
Yeah, well, we have been very fortunate, and even picking different times of year that we go, we've really been very fortunate with the weather. Anyway, we are going to learn about this island of Rhodes. We're also going to go to the city of the ancient city of Lindos as well on this adventure. So let's give a listen right now to our guide.
The city that has been established during the Knights of St. John occupation, Knights of St. John, Knights of Jerusalem, Knights of Malta, or Knights of Rhodes, no matter how you call them, it's the same order actually, but quite an important order of the Catholic Church, and the order was founded in the 11th century, so these knights came and settled down here in Rhodes Island in the year 1309, in the beginning of the 14th century, so they left the island after 213 years, and they moved from here to Malta, so they arrived in Malta after approximately 10 years, so they became the famous Maltese Knights as you know them today. Though the most interesting part of the city for us as a group is the part that is not inhabited anymore. It's the area where the Grand Master's Palace is located, the beautiful street of the Knights and the hospital of the Knights of St. John. But of course there is a commercial part, because it's a city. Rhodes Island is an island whose economy is actually based on tourism. But the city is inhabited by more than 5,000 people. There is a wall around the city that has a length of more than 6 kilometers, and there are today 11 gates that give access to the old town of Rhodes. The city has a life of more than 2,400 years. The city was founded in the year 408 before Christ, just in the end of the so-called classical times, yes, of the golden century of Greek history. So people decided that they needed a capital city in Rhodes Island. For example, Lindos is a city that existed before. So Rhodes was the last city that has been founded here in Rhodes Island. But according to tradition and according to the Romantic opinion, this is the place where the famous Colossus of Rhodes was placed in ancient times. I don't know if you've ever heard the word Colossus or Colosseum. It's quite a known word. It's a Greek word. Kolossos in Greek, means big, huge. So the ancient citizens of Rhodes decided that they decided to thank Apollo, the ancient patron god of the city, for the prosperity of the city. And that's why they decided to build a huge statue, one of the 7 ancient wonders. Most probably the statue was not placed here, but if you open any book, you will see a representation in the entrance of Mandraki Harbor of the Colossus of Rhodes, built here with open legs, so big and so huge, so interesting that the ships could actually pass under the legs in order to reach the harbor. But it's quite an interesting representation, though it has nothing to do with reality. On your right-hand side, the Harbor Mandraki, the entrance of Mandraki Harbor, and of course the church, the cathedral.
This is a cathedral, but it's a very small one, and we can see it's right here almost on the water, as it were. But I love the architecture that we see, and as we're going to go in our bus, and of course we're just shooting out of the bus window right here. A lot of new things that are being done, and a lot of what I want to say, refurbishing, I guess, of some of the old stuff too. You have to figure that there's an awful lot of people that live on this island, so and it's a very important island as well here in Greece. But I thought that this was a real exciting trip that we had on this one, because we got to see more than we did on one of the other trips that we took about, what was that about? That was about 5 years before, I think it was. So this was, it gave us a little more chance to get in and see a lot more, especially on this island. And as you can see, there's a few Christmas tree decorations, because we were there in November. Yeah. And I was surprised, because, almost all of the places that we went to, there were Christmas decorations that were already up. I think they kind of force it a little bit like we do.
Oh, do. But, I think that's nice. If we always go like in November or the off-season time of the year, not only because there aren't a lot of people, because it's a heck of a lot cheaper for our people to be able to travel there.
That's right. Now we've gone across the island, and we are here on the island of the city of Lindos, and we have a lot of climbing to
That
do
was
on this
a
particular
good walk
one.
up
It
there.
was a
I'm
good
telling you,
walk,
I was
right.
just watching Father Pat.
Because we're going to go to what was the Acropolis on top of Lindos, but you can look at the whole village that you see right here, and you look to, oh, isn't that
that's
beautiful?
Marv's little boat.
Boy, I wish
over
that
there.
were too.
That's his dream.
I wish that
That's
were.
your dream boat.
You talk about sailing the Greek Isles. What a great way to do it,
Yeah,
huh?
really
And look at that little cove right
Yes,
here.
you'd have to work at
Beautiful.
that, though. The way you go, you don't have to work.
Well, that's true. Yeah. No, well, you hire a captain.
Yes,
you know,
I guess if
just
you could
do
afford
that.
a yacht, then you could afford
I
somebody.
guess so. That's why mine's a little tiny boat. Anyway, we're going to climb the stairs here because we're going to listen to our guide up here as she explains to us about this particular area. And it's very, very interesting. And they're doing a lot of work here, too. We noticed this from the couple of times that we were there, that they're not wasting any time. They're getting it really together.
That the Acropolis was built on 3 levels. So after the entrance, there are of course some more steps from here to the top of the Acropolis, to the highest point of the Acropolis, that you will do of course on your own, because from now on, after the 2nd level, you will want to stop every now and then to take pictures, because the view is amazing from the top of the Acropolis. And every ancient Greek city had of course a necropolis around the walls. Nekros in Greek is the dead, yes? So the cemeteries of every ancient Greek city. If you visit the archaeological places, not only in Greece but in any other place in the world, I think that the most important thing is to check the landscape. Just note the landscape, because from the landscape you can almost read history, even without really having an idea about the history of the place. Just ask yourself, for example, why these people chose this place and not another place to build or to found their city. This city was inhabited, I mentioned when we were in the bus, that this place is inhabited even from prehistoric times. Why? A dry place. This area was not a fertile area. People could not occupy themselves to agriculture in this area. What could they do actually? And why did they stay here? Because of the 2 small natural harbors, one in front of the Acropolis, one behind the Acropolis. So these harbors were actually the main reason why people stayed here for so many centuries, because the base of the economy was here shipping and commerce, yes, to small protected harbors, and of course the Acropolis. For Greeks, it was always clear. When Greeks wanted to build or to found a city, they always looked for a place around a rock or around a hill. So this city was in one particular moment of Greek history a very important city because of commerce, and that's why they decided that they needed big public buildings up the Acropolis. The Acropolis was in use, of course, even before as a sanctuary dedicated to goddess Athena, but when the city became very rich, the people decided to build other buildings to show, of course, to the other cities how rich they are, yes. So what we can see here, we reached the 1st level of the Acropolis. We can see a wall, yes, that surrounds the Acropolis. This wall dates back to the 15th century, to the period of the Knights of St. John. But if you look carefully down there, can you see the old parts of the walls?
Right,
Yes.
right.
You can see the difference between the stones down and, of course, the upper part. And the Knights of St. John, as intelligent people as they were, of course, they decided to use this area as a fortress, and to use this area as a station, yes, and as an observation area to observe the ships that were coming and going, reaching the coast of Asia Minor. So what we have here is, in the 1st level, second, what we can see some cisterns for the water of the rain, because the area is dry. There was no water. People had to collect the water of the rain on the roofs of their houses. They used to lead it in a well like this in the yard, and this was the only drinking water they had. Though they stayed here for many, many centuries. Second, what else can we see? We can see some bases. You see these holes here. Statues. Pilgrims would bring statues as a gift to the goddess. So it is always written, of course. That's why we have some information about this Acropolis, although this Acropolis has not been excavated by Greek archaeologists. Danish archaeological school and later other archaeologists came from all over Europe and excavated this place, like it happened everywhere in Greece. That means, of course, that the most important statues or the most beautiful pieces of the Acropolis are not exhibited here. I'm afraid that you have to travel to Denmark if you want to see the statues of Lindos, because the statues are exhibited in the Archaeological Museum of Copenhagen. So what we have here are the basis of the statues, of course, and it is always written in Greek, by whom the statue was brought, when, why, and from where. So we have some information about this Acropolis and about this particular moment of the Acropolis that we are talking about. So, about the Acropolis now, first level. We know that the ship was made by a very important ancient Greek sculptor. He was known because he created one of the most beautiful statues in the world. It's the famous Winged Victory, or the Nike of Samothrace. If you visit the Louvre Museum in Paris, you will see it in the first room. She gives us the impression that she's going to fly. It's one of the most beautiful ancient Greek statues. Nike, as we say in Greek. You use the word Winged Victory sometimes. I'm sure that you know, or that you wear Nike shoes, yes, or Nike t-shirts sometimes. You should know that this is a Greek word. Nike in Greek is the victory. She was a divinity. She had wings. She could fly from one person to the other, from one city to the other, and that's why she had wings.
Well, Betty, I'll tell you, now we're gonna climb a little bit more. As she said, there are some more steps and we go up there, but you know, we're taking it kind of easy. And now we're going to go through this portal right here, and we get into the top of the Acropolis here, and we can still see that they have really done a tremendous job right here. And we're going to take a look at a little bit more of this as well. To me, it's fascinating that the government is continually doing this, because, Betty, if you take and look at not only just the islands of Greece, but the mainland of Greece as well, I mean, the whole country has so much in the way of, I want to say, ruins or antiquities, I guess I should say that, that, you know, it's got to be a very expensive proposition.
Well, I don't think that Greece is a poor nation. I look at all of the money that's there from their shipping.
Well, the shipping's owned by private people.
Yeah, well, they
That's
can
not
donate.
a government thing.
Yeah, but don't they have to pay to? I mean, for their docking and all that? Or do they
Probably own the ports.
Ah, well, that's very important, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And speaking about the ports, I'm sure that there was a lot of docking of small ships that were around here. And in fact, I was wondering, and I didn't get an answer, whether I think that Paul was in this area too, and I want to find out exactly where he landed. You know, where the boat came in, but I didn't get an answer to that, so well, I'm not sure.
There's not very many really good landing places, it doesn't look like. But that man was so spectacular. Paul,
yes.
Nothing defeated him, did it? If he crashed once, he'd come try it again.
That's true. I mean, he really had a lot of fortitude. I think, you know, the experience that he had on the road to Damascus not only changed his life, but also, you know, really set the course of, you know, of Christianity, and Christianity being able to be spread around the world.
Yeah, this is what makes these trips fun, Marv. We call them a pilgrimage most of the time, as a pilgrimage. We do Holy Land pilgrimage more than, but these two, we go to so many of the sites, and like Journeys of St. Paul. You couldn't help, as you walked, you know, through the areas there, you'd say, oh gosh, this is where Paul did this. Right. And then you had such a great appreciation for him too. And
you can still, you know, the interesting thing is you can still read the letters that he wrote to the people in these towns, villages, or like we saw in our last episode, you know, the big city of Ephesus. I mean, absolutely incredible. And to see that, you know, that the Christians started, you know, as a small little sect, I guess you would say, probably, and grew, you know, and to what we see today. Now that's where I think the ship probably came in, was down there in that area. But look here, Betty, we can see now this reconstruction here that's going on. They've saved the old pillars, and they've had to wrap some of those so that they, you know, that they're not going to fall apart. Yeah, right. But we see so many pillars all over the place that are falling down, and I would imagine that they have used most of these, the ones that were ancient. They may have had to restore some others and maybe make some new ones. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, we can see what they're doing here, and those look like they are probably newer pillars right there.
I wonder what that is. I mean,
that's part of the Acropolis. You know, it was probably, if we would have had more time, because we didn't have the guide up here on top of the Acropolis or on top of the hill. I'm sure that probably maybe it was one of the temples to Athena or to one of the Grecian gods, I would suspect, because that's what they did, is they picked the highest mountain or the highest place that they could, and that's where they built the temple to the god or goddesses. And we can see here just what we talked about a little bit ago, that having to reinforce that pillar so that it doesn't really fall apart.
In my little mind, the word Acropolis is always Athens, the Acropolis, because that's where we see the pictures of it, and you see it lit up at night, and you see it in the daytime, and so Acropolis is just...
But there are many Acropolises.
I know there are. I have found this, in my travels.
Right.
But that was always what I
I think that's what most of the people really are familiar with, because that's
associate
exactly. Because I mean, how many pictures have been taken of that particular place, right?
What does Acropolis mean?
Let's see. It's 2 words, and it means, I think, on top of. I think
like
she explained it to us once before.
A crop of less?
No. Don't think so.
It has to mean something.
Yeah, well, it means on top of, or the high place, I believe. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Anyway, we climbed now back from Lindos and we had quite a ways to go because the buses can't go in there. It's just a little tiny road that goes into the village.
It was a walk.
It was a walk, so everybody got a nice ice cream cone or something nice to drink, and so then we got back on the bus, and we can see there the Acropolis of Lindos off in
Marv.
the...
That's a great
picture. Well,
there.
I mean, you can't help but look at picture postcard things everywhere you see, in the Greek Isles. I think that's what is so magnificent about it. And the water, so blue, so clear, so wonderful. Just absolutely, and there's that boat again, Betty,
That's Marv's boat.
Yeah, I wish. When I win the lottery, right?
You probably wouldn't do it then.
Well, we're going to go back into the old city there of Rhodes, so that's where we're heading now. But we're going to make a stop along the way because we want to see some of the how some of the artisans in this particular area see what their work is like. And there are so many beautiful things that are being made all over Greece, and you can't take it all home, but at least you can take some pictures of it home as well. So let's listen to our guide once again.
On your right-hand side now, the view is again beautiful. It's a small protected harbor. It's the Bay of Licha. There are some hotels here in this area because it is not allowed to build hotels in Lindos, so they build most of the hotels outside of the small peninsula of Lindos. So enjoy the landscape for now. Rhodes is mentioned in the Bible, but it is only one phrase. It says that Paul passed from Rhodes and Kos. It was his 3rd journey. He was on his way to Jerusalem, yes, and he passed from Rhodes and Kos. He didn't really stay here, yes, but the fact that Rhodes is mentioned in the Bible as a place that has been visited by Paul, is very important. That means that first Christian communities were founded very, very soon here, very early. After the visit of Paul, people started to found Christian communities. We know that because of excavations. Archaeologists did really find huge early Christian basilicas that date back to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century after Christ, of course. So we know exactly that Rhodes was quite a large Christian community in the first centuries of Christianism in this area. Of course, it was a very important paganist sanctuary, and we know that Paul visited all these places that were quite important sanctuaries, like Miletus or like Ephesus. In this area, there were 3 important sanctuaries: Miletus, Ephesus, and Rhodes, the Acropolis of Rhodes, as a sanctuary that was dedicated to goddess Athena. So probably this is the reason I came here in the first place, because it was a very important paganistic place. People were actually had as a tradition in this area to worship female goddesses. Yes.
After a while, you kind of get a little confused with the various gods and goddesses that they talk about, because the mythology there, the Greek mythology is just really interesting. And I guess a lot of people know an awful lot about it. I don't. I've read some of it. We get a good dose of it, of course, when we get over here to Greece, but then kind of forget it after a bit. But this is interesting to me because I did buy a big plate, not here, but I bought one on one of the other islands. that I wanted to take home. But this handiwork is just so beautiful, and you know, this is all done by hand, and it's nice to have a little souvenir like this to bring home to remember, you know, your trip by.
Yeah, this is not the stuff that you would just buy in a 5 and 10 cent store if they had such a thing. These are handcrafted.
Right.
You pay a little more for them, but most of them have on the bottom of the authenticity. Right.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, that's very true. And I think the workmanship on this is just just really beautiful.
Kind of hard. I don't think it's beautiful because I don't like the colors, but I like the workmanship. I think but that's just me. I mean,
yeah. That's
my
and of course, as you go along, you're going to see all sorts of different types of things. You know, of course, that and some of it may turn you on, and some of it may not. But there's certainly enough of it there, and in some of the other places that we stopped along the way, that we saw as well. And you know, the things are not inexpensive. You do pay a little more than you would probably in a curio shop, that type of thing. But we're right at the factory, so you're still going to get a fairly good deal right here. And this is, you know, you're on the main highway as such, but you're not in a really tourist area like downtown or something like that.
And those people that had this one, they were going to San Francisco the next week. And she was pumping me. Oh, what, like San Francisco? Just
like the people that had the shop?
Yeah, and like like when we go, you know, to one of the countries, we say, "What is this?" and blah blah blah. Well, that was just the reaction that I got from them. It was fun.
Would you give them some good hints on places to go in San Francisco?
I hope so.
Well, you used to live there forever, so you
but she was interested in shopping. And I didn't have any money enough to do much shopping in San Francisco. I could look in the stores, though.
Well, I know, but you usually go up there around Christmas time anyway to take a look at all the goodies.
But that's a looking.
Yeah, but you could tell her where to go.
Oh, I'm very good at telling people where to go.
Well, we're going, as we say, back toward the ship, and we see beautiful little churches you see right here, and some of these are just gorgeous inside. The mosaics and the icons that are there, really nice. So we're getting now back to the old part of the city of Rhodes, and we can see it's very, very large. This fortification that Betty talked about before, the walls around it, I mean, it is very, very large. It's just not a small little area, and there are a few thousand people that live within these walls. And this particular time we had a chance not only to discover, of course, the antiquity part of it, but also we got a chance to do some shopping as well. So it was really great. And I thought that this was so well kept up because, you know, we had to stop a couple of times because the cars are going in and out of the old city there. And it's really, really quite something. So it's a great, great place to visit. And I think that our guide's going to give us a little more explanation right here because there's so much knowledge.
I mentioned that the city is a World Heritage City. Yes, of course in Europe is full of medieval cities, yes, and castles, smaller, bigger castles. But this one is something particular, first of all because it's inhabited. It's not just a place where people go inside to visit monuments. It's a city that is inhabited by more than 5,000 people. Can you imagine that? And of course you can see cars that drive in and out. We came inside, we chose this gate to come inside because it's the only opportunity to see the walls, how the wall of the old town was built. I mentioned earlier this morning that for the Knights left the island because the island has been occupied by the Turks, by the Ottoman Turks, yes. Suleiman the Magnificent was the man who occupied the island of Rhodes. It was for them very important because of the strategical position of the island. I remind you only that the whole eastern part of Europe was already under Muslim occupation, and the only place that remained still Christian because of the Knights of St. John was the island of Rhodes. So it was for the Turks very important to occupy the island. It was a matter of honor. That's why they keep coming back again and again, attacking the island. But in the 15th century, the whole strategy of war and defense changed because of gunpowder, yes. And of course, the Knights, yes, really didn't have, being inside the walls, really didn't have the opportunity to rebuild the walls as they wanted, yes, because the wall, because they had to defend their city. What they did is actually they brought architects from France and Italy to help them to restore the walls. And the result is what you see. First of all, this gate is called Gate d'Amboise, named after one of the Grand Masters of the Order of the Knights. The bridge was a drawbridge. It has been rebuilt later, and this moat was never filled with water because it lies above the sea level. You can see all sorts of balls of the catapults and cannonballs inside the moat. Behind that gate is the Grand Master's Palace, and the Grand Master's Palace was the most, and it is, of course, until today, the most important building of the Order of the Knights, and they had to protect it, and they did protect it, not only by building a first moat, there is a second and a third one protecting the palace. Really quite an interesting wall, and it's a combination of a wall before and after gunpowder. That's what makes the wall so interesting, the wall that surrounds the medieval town of Rhodes.
As I say, it's so interesting to see this medieval town and to actually, again, know all the history that has gone on through here. It's marvelous. And, you know, I hope to get a chance to go back to Rhodes another time, because I would like to spend a couple of days here, not just, you know, hop off the ship and spend, you know, part of the day, but I'd like to spend more time here because there's so much to see and so much to really understand, and I think that we did a good trip on this one. It was very good, and
very cursory, though. You know.
Yeah, you know, like we said before, it really kind of whets your appetite to see more and want to explore more.
Look at these shots; are just fabulous.
Well,
just fabulous.
It's just such a great place. And our guide's going to give us a little bit more as we continue down some of the streets here in this medieval city. And I'll tell you, everywhere you look is just beautiful.
During the Turkish occupation, there was a big explosion in this area. The church and a big part of the Grand Master's Palace have been destroyed. Yes. The Turks, though, used the rest of the palace as a prison for many years until the Italians came here. And the Italians actually decided to restore the whole area. To restore the Grand Master's Palace, first of all, because they wanted to use it as a summer house for Mussolini and for the king of Italy of that time, Vittorio Emanuele III. What they did is actually what they wanted. They wanted to build a very impressive building, and that's what they did.
Well, Betty, I hope everybody enjoyed our little trip to the island of Rhodes and also over to the old city of Lindos. There's so much, as I say, so much more to see here, and a person just has to really go back because it's just absolutely fascinating. But listen, that's all the time that we have, so we are going to have to say goodbye, and we will see you next time as we continue on the Greek Isles, this wonderful, wonderful trip. So, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.